I have to admit, until recently I hadn't heard of Killough. Nice little place, pleasant view of the moorns, but of course the reason that I'm interested in it is because it has an old railway station. Killough Station was the next one along from Ardglass on the Downpatrick, Killough and Ardglass Railway. And although it was built on a budget, these three stations, they were still all proper jobs with a white picket fence and station master's house, but it did take quite a while to get it going, precisely because it was built without bridges and the rails just had to be rolled out over the land. It actually took 23 years from initial plans until the railway opened. Of course, there were the usual settlements to be reached with landowners first. Lord Bangor, who actually owned Killough, had the nerve to sue the company for digging up and then reusing a valuable clay which he didn't even know he had. So the first hint of a disused railway is whenever you're driving into Killough on the road and you can see this bridge, which would have come from Coney Island. You can follow the line of the embankment up to the point that it actually would have crossed the road at the level crossing. Then the second hint is the goods shed, which is a familiar sight. There's loads of these still on the old network. Back in Killough's heyday, if it ever had one, this would have been full of barley and probably a few herrings from down the road in Ardglass as well. Now, when I went to film, the door was open, and I can tell you that the contents weren't as fragrant as they would have been back then. The fellas hanging around outside weren't too keen on me filming inside. Fair enough, I suppose. Thankfully, I had much more luck with the station itself. On the day I went to film, without an appointment, I might add, the current owner, Michael, young fella, very amenable and had no issue letting me wander about the place. And he seemed to have great interest in the building's history, but then it turned out that it's belonged to his family for about 65 years now. Even better, he actually went and found a few things for me. So he found this photo for me. He told me it's actually on the day the station opened in 1892. And the deeds of sale from when the Ulster Transport Authority sold the station master's house, the actual passenger station, was sold to Michael's great-grandfather, and it's stayed in his family ever since. Michael's grandparents converted the house in the late 60s, and it was obviously a big enough story to make the Belfast Telegraph in May 1969. Apart from a couple of modifications that either the sands of time or the winds of practicality have forced upon them, the family have kept the building and the platforms pretty much as they were, although sadly the old signal cabin, which I actually managed to get a photo of a couple of years ago, is now gone. And even more sadly for me is the same fate has befallen the replica station sign. Michael himself is now totally renovating his half of the house as a lockdown project, with a view to maybe living there himself. But he's also replacing the fences, landscaping the gardens, and just generally tidying the place up. So unless disaster befalls Killough, the station will probably be there for some time to come.